Welcome to Revenue Mind, a podcast that gives revenue leaders a platform to talk about mental health. I'm personally a big advocate of mental health and hope these insights, stories, and guts to open up, inspire, enlighten, and resonate with you. Now on to the episode. Welcome to Revenue Mind, a podcast where revenue leaders talk about all things mental health. I'm Jolie, your host, and with us is Mason. Welcome, Mason.
Jolie, thank you for having me. Excited to dig into it today.
So before we dig in, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a husband and then a father, and then I happen to also run a company called Scrappy ABM. I always like to do it in that order specifically because it's in the context of mental health. If your work becomes your identity, you end up not being super present for your family. I want to be able to provide for my family and be present for them. That's who I am. Scrappy ABM provides step-by-step programs for the crawl stage of account-based marketing. So that's what we functionally do. But the goal is to essentially help people build better processes that also take care of their people as they go to build an account-based program.
I really resonate with that. Something my partner says is money is a tool. We all love to have a purpose-driven job, but at the end of the day, it gives us the tools to provide for families, to travel, to live our best lives. So that's awesome. So now on to the question. So you've been on quite a few podcasts, many of which I've listened to, and you also host your own. What keeps you coming back to share your stories and insights?
I really actually just enjoy it separately from the opportunity to create content, which is hopefully helpful for a lot of people. What I've found is the most enjoyable piece is, admittedly, we're all super busy. So this is an opportunity to have a one-to-one conversation with another human being that is in the same space and can relate and bounce off of each other. And I've just actually made really great friendships through podcasting, like people that are in the B2B SaaS world that are some of my closest friends started as a podcast guest. Yes, I love creating content. Yes, I love helping people build better ABM program. Somebody that's willing to host a podcast or be on a podcast generally are great people. It's hard to host a podcast and to stay consistent. So if it's something that you're consistent with, it means that you really deeply care about the topic and the subject matter. And hopefully it's something that we can actually develop a longer term friendship around. So that's why I keep coming back. And then also it's a forcing function for me to really clarify my thoughts. I have done a lot of podcasts on similar topics. I feel like every time I share something, I get better at communicating it. Since most of my job in my life now is actually communication of ideas, the more that I can communicate those ideas, the better they get refined, the more clearly they are communicated. And as a result, the better I can help other people. So those are the reasons I keep coming back.
That's awesome. Speaking of mental health, with your deep passion, how do you integrate this advocacy into your marketing and revenue leadership roles where there's an insane amount of pressure?
In the context of running an agency, and I'm stealing this, I worked in an agency previously and they did this really well. And I got to be honest, as I look back on my professional life, it was probably the happiest that I was. For my team, what I try to do is structure their world in which they have 3 core responsibilities. And that's it. If they can do 3 things super well, then they're good to go. And again, in the context of an agency, which is what we run, it's easier to do that because you do 3 things across 10 clients versus in a day job, you may need to do 10 things across 3 different departments. But for revenue leadership, my goal is to create a world in which somebody can truly just do their job and do it really well because it's very clear and very specific. So there's that side. And then the other component to it is I try to lay out our work week in such a way that it's roughly 32 to 35 hours of work that is pre-planned work, because especially in the context of an agency, generally speaking, something will probably happen. There is the inevitable client fire. Something happens that was outside of our control that we are still held accountable to and have to fix. So when that happens, not if, but when, if we've consistently worked 32 to 35 hours a week, then maybe the fix is a 5-hour fix and we're still under 40. Other times though, it might be a 50 to 55-hour work week. And my goal is the give and take. We often think about give and take in the context of, yeah, you're going to work your 40 hours. And then like occasionally there'll be like the 50-hour work week, but like people sign a contract that says they're going to work 160 hours a month. So if I bank that they should work ballpark 32 to 35 hours, and also if they work faster, am I going to penalize them and add more work? Great. They're an efficient worker. Like they should have less to do because my margins stay the same, admittedly, as a business owner and as a revenue leader. And then when the inevitable fire comes up, it doesn't feel as stressful because there's already been baked in time for the unplanned. And if it ends up going over and it ends up being a 45 or a 50 or 55-hour work week for 1 week, the rest of the month is 32 to 35. So it evens out in the long run. And team members know that I try to plan and I structure organization in such a way that the fires don't take over their life, but that they are, to the best of our ability, planned for.
Thank you so much for sharing. So, you've shared a bit about your transition from pursuing pastoral work to a significant impact in marketing. Can you elaborate how this journey has shaped your leadership and mental approach?
Admittedly, I'm very open about my faith. I personally had a friend because I was trying to become a pastor, and as much as I thought I could be in ministry, I realized like it was not my gifting, it was not my skill set. I can teach really well on ABM, but my wife lovingly told me, because she came to my Sunday school class for 1 semester and it was horrible. And I just did such a bad job. And I consistently could not teach scripture, but I can teach you how to do an ABM program super well, which is really kind of frustrating, but it's just not my skill set. So what I ended up, I had a friend that just said, "Hey, Mason, you're really," because I was working in sales, I was doing really well in sales and self-sourcing on a pipeline and ended up becoming a sales team leader. It's like, "Mason, you're really good at like making revenue. Like somebody has to fund the church." So for me, as I think through then revenue leadership, I've primarily worked in organizations in which the goal was our job is to market a thing that helps other people make money so they can make more money. And if that's it, that's really actually super depressing. Because I married a nurse that like actually saved people's lives. So if the whole goal of everything that we do is to make money so that we can help other people make money so they can help other people make money, like that really sucks. So going back to your point earlier, that money is just a tool. Like I happen to be really good at marketing and communication and generally speaking, account-based marketing specifically. And I've helped build a team of people that are good at that too. So we all make money. And then what I've tried to do is have value alignment with those that I work with. We generally all want the same things, which are to use money that we earn to go make a greater impact. In my context, that is ideally actually spreading the gospel. Some of our team members have the exact same thought process, but the goal is to take the revenue that we generate, to take the income that we earn, and to actually go do something with that. And because we don't have to stress over like, where's the next meal going to come from? Like, we are secure, we are stable, we have shelter. We can actually now think more of higher level thinking. And as a result, our goal is to then help other people outside of our day jobs. I try to create, again, an organization and a team structure in which people can do their jobs. They can do good work. They can find purpose in their work, but also get the job, and they can do a really good job and then go do other things that align to a greater purpose that is not just helping other people make money.
For marketing, I have a huge passion for it, and I have a huge passion for helping solve problems. So at the agency, we help solve problems. That's essentially the crux of what we do for very large organizations. So you find that purpose there. But then with this mental health podcast, I love it because I get to give everyone a platform to share their story. And I think it's something that hasn't really been addressed, at least in the revenue community. So it's just been cool
Yeah.
to do. And I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts as well. Speaking of purpose, you found a unique way to blend purpose-driven work with your professional skills. How has this work influenced your perspective on success and fulfillment in the tech space?
Yeah, it's really interesting because somebody's like, "What's your goal with Scrappy ABM?" And I'm like, "To exist." The whole goal is just to keep going. I was talking with another client and they're like, "Yeah, our goal is in the 5 years to like take down our greatest competitor." I'm like, "That's cool." Some of these companies that we're going up against are like, way better funded. So they just have more money and like, they can outspend us. My goal is not to beat the largest agency in the world. For me, it's just I take a lot of comfort in my goal is to just continue to exist and continue to do good work for our clients. My game is a bit different as a result because I play a 25 to 30-year game. My goal is to be around for a while. So it puts a lot less pressure on the here and now. Like I can have a month that's not nearly as profitable as our last month because I made intentional investments and there's nobody else outside of me because we're again, privately held, entirely bootstrapped organization. I hate to put it this bluntly, but as long as I'm okay with it and our team's okay with it, we can do whatever we want. So generally speaking, that's how I feel about it. The goal is not to overtake and destroy and kill our competition. The goal is to do really good work for really good clients and help people out, make a decent living, and continue to exist. That is it. And I just think if more people had that mindset, that the goal isn't to win. It's really funny when you start to shift the perspective towards the idea of an infinite game. It's like, how do you win business? You don't win in marriage. You continue to be married. And I think, again, in the context of business and in revenue, there are certain companies that I will say in the PE and VC space that are specifically built in such a way to sell to a larger organization. You can win in that context, but most businesses today are built just to exist and to add benefit to somebody else. So again, for me as a revenue leader, that's the shift in perspective. As long as we continue growing in the long term, and as long as we continue, yes, we have specific revenue goals. I would like us to be a $1.2 million business in revenue by the end of the year. That's our goal. But if we came in at 1 or 1.1, not the end of the world. We just wouldn't be able to do some things that we want to do for next year. And then that would happen a little bit later on, which is okay because the goal is to exist for the next 25 to 30 years. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was talking with Alex Boyd earlier, and we aligned on it's the journey, not the destination.
It's like who you become along the way. Self-improvement process of all time. Prime example of Scrappy ABM. Scrappy ABM was started because I was half decent at doing account-based marketing programs. And I have a team of 7. I don't actually do that much ABM anymore. I now manage a team of people that do account-based marketing, and I have to help them get better at their job. I don't know what the destination will actually end up being, but I like who I'm becoming. I like who I'm helping our team become along the way. So for me, that's actually better than the destination. Like it's who we become along the way.
I love that. I might steal that. Well, we'll say you coined it. So pivoting a little bit, dealing with performance pressures and the potential impact of your actions on others' livelihoods is incredibly stressful. Can
Yep.
you talk about a time when this weight felt particularly heavy and how you managed?
Yeah, super easily. I was the director of growth at an agency and sold like a lot in a very short time frame. And admittedly, I got frustrated because I was working ridiculous amount and didn't receive the compensation that I thought I should have been receiving. Whether that was naivety or whatever, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I thought I should be earning more. I thought I should be working less. Neither one of those things happened. After I had my performance review, they're like, "You're doing great." I got a very standard raise. So I left. And about 3 months after, they did a layoff. I was the sole seller for that organization. When I left, I knew that layoff was in large part probably because I wasn't there selling. They just had a really great product. And I happened to sit in a seat that sold that product. When a seller leaves, especially if they're the sole seller, you're going to lose relationship traction. It's going to push deals out. People are going to see the transition and they're going to maybe not come inbound as much for a season. And that impacted the revenue of that organization in a not insignificant way, clearly. I don't know that I handled it well in the sense that felt awful for those people that ended up being laid off. And I did what I could to help them land new jobs. I think I've helped probably 60 people land new jobs in the past 4 years because I know it's hard. I felt really frustrated. I honestly felt very bitter towards leadership. I was also probably really arrogant in a I mean that sincerely I felt both sides of it. It was like, oh, if I had stayed, like I could have helped these people not lose their job. But it was also like, if they'd give me the raise, like they probably wouldn't have had to lay these people off and they probably would have made more money. Because it was also maybe at the same time that like a market shift happened and maybe they changed the product and I wasn't aware of it. There's 1,000 things that it could have been, but I, having my own perspective, both beat myself up over something that I had already left 3 months previously and got cocky and arrogant in my own mind about if they had just done the thing, they would be better off. And I have no idea. I think, especially in revenue leadership, or if you're a seller and like, things don't go your way, it's very easy to start telling yourselves narratives of like, oh, if they just listened, things would have gone differently. Again, especially in the seat of a seller, because you are the gatekeeper to revenue that has continued growth, unless you have a great expansion motion, which most companies don't. So it's easy to start telling yourself those narratives. And I wish what I had done instead, because I wasted a lot of time thinking about something that I had zero impact on and could have zero impact on. I wish I had just moved on more quickly and said, like, man, that really sucks. And then help people land new jobs and just called it a day. But that probably lived rent free in my mind for about 3 or 4 months, not a short time either. I know they'll still pop up in the back of my mind. All these things happen to that organization and it's been years and I'm like, and like, that's just my own potentially cockiness and arrogance, but also like desire to help other people all at the same time.
I think when you're under that amount of pressure, it really puts things into perspective. So I know we talked a little bit about purpose-driven marketing and the antithesis of what we're doing right now, but the mental health benefits of creative freedom are amazing, especially to be able to do it for refugees. So can you tell us a little bit about your project there?
Yeah. I help run the marketing for a local nonprofit that we've been involved with for about 3 years that teaches English to refugees. And our whole goal is to help get more refugees educated on how to speak English. My wife grew up as a third culture kid. Her parents were both from the United States, but my wife was born in Singapore as a missionary and then was raised in Turkey as a missionary until she was 18. And she moved back to the States. Turks didn't recognize her as Turkish, and people in the US didn't recognize her as from the States because she didn't grow up in the US. She grew up in Turkey, but she was an American. So she had this weird amalgamation that is a third culture. And specifically in the children of refugees, that is often the case because they are from another nation, but that nation doesn't recognize them as from there because they were raised in a different nation. The nation that they go to doesn't recognize them as that nation either because they're citizens from a different nation. We've been really involved in specifically teaching English and love working with the kids because my wife has this unique ability to actually have a deep level of empathy, which is very difficult because most people are not this weird amalgamation of a third culture. And then I used to teach English. Surprisingly, I'm not a very good English teacher. I'm only really good at teaching marketing, apparently. So as much as I was willing to help and volunteer, it's not my skill set because I write marketing copy. I don't write like proper English grammar copy. What I've found is I now help the leaders that are primarily just good at English teaching. They don't know how to grow a program. So we've just been focused on building out an annual content calendar with specific programming and like how to promote those programs and utilize the existing. I actually wrote down a 4D framework of data distribution, destination, and direction, which is our ABM campaign framework. But I like built a framework for them on like how they should run all of their programs. They're like, this is great. I do that every Tuesday night and help them run their postmortems and like structure a team, help them build out all their job descriptions for every single role. So there's clear roles and responsibilities and alignment. Everybody knows what they're stepping into. I don't know. You're going to help out. That's been a lot of fun because again, in the context of purpose-driven marketing, it feels like if I ever have a client listen to this, I love working with our clients. I love the work that we do. I genuinely do. If you've ever heard me talk about ABM, I sound insane because I am so fired up about it. And it's so fun when you get it right. Good. And it's great work and it's fun when you get it right and like, to see the success and to have that win. There's not a better high. then also to take that same skill set and help grow a program that teaches refugees how to acclimate to the US. So they can actually start to build a semblance of a home and change generations because they can get a job that actually pays them decently well so they can send their kids to a good school and their kids can actually be educated. And then 2 generations from now, these are people that actually have a thriving life. That's amazing. And I get to help with that. So yes, I love doing ABM programs, but I also enjoy what I get to do on Tuesday nights and help people learn English through teaching a bunch of volunteers how to do marketing and then running most of it.
Before I started this podcast, I actually volunteered for a mental health nonprofit and did all their marketing. Pivoting a little bit, reflecting on your experiences in both toxic and supportive work environments, how has the transition to leading your own company, where you prioritize creative freedom, affected your mental health and overall happiness?
I don't know. It's just like a weird transition when you become a business owner. I think I'm the happiest that I've ever been, but it's because I'm doing everything truly for our family. I've worked harder than I've ever worked in my life, but I also see all the benefit of it. It's like January, November to March, about 5 months of probably 11 to 12-hour work days, Monday through Friday, and like a half day Saturday. My wife really been a trooper. When I look back on that, and I've done that for other organizations when I was an employee, and I hated it because I was like, this sucks. I didn't know what I was building and I didn't understand what I was building and I didn't see the full benefits of all that we were building. Whereas now I see all of it. Like my role within the context of an organization is the visionary. I see the vision and my job is to evangelize the vision of our organization to our team. The visionary within the organization have a longer term view. So I see the hard work that we're all doing right now, but based on my role, I know my primary job is to communicate where we're headed. So I see where we're headed and it gets me really excited because I just have greater clarity on where we're going and what we're doing and the benefits of the 80-hour week right now that I personally work, which to be clear, we've minimized that. There's greater sense of purpose and joy in it. What's more important in my mind though, is how it's helped the mental health of our team, because I still meet with our team every week purely to just check up on them. I had a team member a couple weeks ago that came to me with some very personal stuff. They've only been working at this organization for like 4 months. So the fact that they felt the psychological safety to share very personal things indicates to me that we're probably building a very safe and welcoming and warm work environment overall. I also want to be clear, I've screwed this up already. I have a team member that I had to transition out and it didn't go well. And I don't mean that as like a negative against them. I probably could have done a lot more to transition them out better, but I've not had to let go of many people in my life. And it's first person I had to let go from my own organization. So like in past roles, it's just like, yeah, the higher ups, like, I am the higher up. And yes, there's other people on the team that are in leadership roles, but at the end of the day, like when I let somebody go, it's my decision. So I still have a lot of room to grow on this. And that was his experience. And we're taking a lot of notes from how we did that poorly to try to be better. That's unfortunately a part of growing as a leader as well. Is I am mostly going to fail. I'm going to get a lot of things wrong. And my goal is that I get the right 20% correct. So the other 80% of the time where I'm really screwing up as a leader, they're minute and they're like things that people can brush off pretty easily. But in the 20% where it matters, they actually see, okay, he is getting it right. And I also think in the context of this leadership and creating the space for mental health components, there's a lot that goes a long way around intention. Because again, specifically in this context, there are times where there is a crunch moment. We just have to get something done. And I understand that there are things that are sucky. We have to work through that. But I really need us to work through that after we've gotten through this crunch time. And that is not the best thing to say as a leader always, but sometimes that's the reality of this is what we have to get done right now. We got to get back to this. And then once we're through this, let's work through that. I know I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth of I'm doing better, try to make our team doing better, but also this is never done. And there are moments where I will completely screw up as a leader pretty bad. And the goal is just that the intention and the times that I get it correct outweigh those where I don't.
Yeah, I think it's really important. It's where it counts, right? You got to ace it where it counts. And
We can
then
try.
where we can try. We can try to ace it where it counts and then pick ourselves back up and try again.
I think it's a very real answer. In the context of people where I screw this up, there will be people that have, like me 3 years ago, implanted in their mind as the person that I am, but I've grown a lot in the past 3 years. There's actually an SDR at a company 5 years ago that was atrocious to me. And I like branded them in my mind as, oh, that's how they like go to market. And I like wouldn't talk to that company for 4 years. I ended up becoming good friends with their co-founder. And he's also grown in his career. He's like a really good guy now and like knows how to actually do stuff. He was just desperate for like 2 months. I know that there are people that probably met me 3, 4, 5 years ago, and that's who they still think I am. But I've grown a lot as a leader and hopefully have better space for actually taking care of people. Yeah, my hope on that front as well, as much as we want to give space for our team members to have effective mental health, one of the best things that I've seen from former leaders that I've actually reconnected with, they've actually apologized and said, hey, I was under a ton of pressure as a leader, and I'm sorry for how I treated you in that moment. Like, will you forgive me? I'm like, of course. Like, you had a moment. Everybody has a moment. I think as much as this is a podcast for revenue leaders on how to create a healthy work environment for themselves so they can be mentally healthy, and also how they do that for their team members. Like, to people listening, I'm a first-time business owner. I get a lot wrong. I get so much wrong. It's not even funny. But I have great team members that feel like we're all in it together and grant me grace. And I just wish a lot of other leaders had that too.
Love that. That's awesome. And I think it's a very real answer. Last question before we see where to find you. Looking ahead, what advice would you give to people listening, struggling to find balance and purpose in their work, especially in high pressure environments like revenue?
People hate this answer, but it's a real answer. Write your obituary. This was something that I stole from Donald Miller he's got a book called Hero on a Mission. And when I started to view myself as a hero on a journey, and that sounds really arrogant and cocky, but I mean that in a very serious way. I'm living out a story. And in my context, I have a higher purpose and calling that I believe I have been called to by God. I mean that seriously. Guaranteed. None of it has much of anything to do with how much revenue I actually generate for anybody, but it's how I treat other people. And it's the work that I do. It's the quality of work that I stand by, because I am a representation of the faith that is the Christian faith. And I need to be very high character and high quality and actually deliver on what I promise I will deliver. That is what I'm held up against. Something that lives out from my purpose, but that's not my purpose. My purpose is not to create great quality ABM programs. Purpose is to love people well and treat people with dignity and respect, and to ideally, through my interactions with them, give them a glimpse of what it's like to know Jesus. That's actually my purpose in life. That's my goal. The bad days at work that are going to happen are going to come and go, but because I'm rooted into a purpose that I think is higher than anything else that I do, it's okay. It's just a day, or it's just a week, or it's just a month, or it's just a season. And as long as you have that rooting, you're good to go, which is why I say write your obituary, because the question is then, when you write your obituary, what do you want to be said about you when you're gone? Is it that you generated so much revenue for Acme organization that you hit President's Club 5 years in a row? Probably not. For me, it's that I want my daughter to know that she had a present dad that was a really good husband and that really loved the Lord, that happened to run a company that took care of people, both clients and team members. That's what I want. And I want the money that we make to go towards funding things that have nothing to do with B2B tech at all. because that's my goal. My friend told me to fund the church. So I need to send people on mission trips. I need to invest in nonprofit organizations that spread the gospel. And then I need to make time and space for myself to go do the same. I don't think you find purpose in work. I think your job and how you live in your job flows out of your purpose. My purpose is not to build a business. My purpose is not to build ABM programs. Identify what the actual purpose is. And once you've done that, there are going to be times and seasons in which what you do doesn't align to your purpose. I worked in an organization in which I worked 80-hour weeks consistently with no end in sight. I was not able to have a life. I was given almost no heads up ever, and I had to do international travel frequently. I literally could not have a life, which then impacted my ability to live out my purpose. And as a result, I had to change jobs. That was all fine. So again, that's the thought process, is write your obituary, identify what your purpose is. What do you want to be said about you when you're gone? And then live your life into that. And if there's things that you do in your day job that don't allow you to live into it, is it a season? It's okay to take a break for a quarter or 6 months from the greater sense of purpose. You got a long time. Like a career for a lot of people now is 40 years. It's okay if there's 6 months that's a little bit off track. If it's an extended season and there's no end in sight where you get back on track to what you identify is your purpose, make a transition. It's as simple as that. Like one of the things that we do for our team that I'm in the process of doing with every single one of our team members is called a personal roadmap. I want to understand where our team members want to go in their life. I want to figure out how I can help them get there, both while they're here and then after they're gone, because they will probably only work here for 3 to 5 years. That'd be amazing. Most employers will not do that. That is super weird to sit down with your boss and be like, all right, where do you want to go the next 3 to 5 years? Most people won't do that. And if they do, they won't be honest with their boss because they're like, I'm probably going to leave here in 2 years. Identify where you want to go. And then again, how does your job fit into that? And if it doesn't, that's okay. Make a change. When I say it like that makes it sound super easy. It's not. It's really freaking hard. But also, what's even scarier is when you're on the exact same step a year later and you've made 0 progress. Again, if you recognize this is not it for me, make a transition. And that may take time, but make progress every single day because you recognize how you're playing into a longer term purpose for your life. And that's my soapbox.
Where can we find you?
Honestly, I don't talk about this a ton in my life. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to share a little bit about it. I'm all over LinkedIn, sometimes unfortunately for people, because I talk a lot about ABM and I have a really cute daughter. So I post a lot of photos of her. I'm also, like you mentioned at the beginning, about my own podcast called Scrappy ABM, where we talk exclusively about like, how do you go build an ABM program? Honest to goodness, I don't know what happened, but like I somehow got lined up for 12 webinars this summer. So I'll just be all over webinars talking about ABM. If you follow any B2B tech companies, I might be doing a webinar with them. But hey, if you want to do a webinar with me, I'm apparently doing that a lot now. So I'm happy to keep that train rolling. Those are places you can find me: LinkedIn, podcast of Scrappy ABM. We have an email list if you want our playbooks. You can go to scrappyabm.com and sign up there. If you want to work with somebody, that's what I actually do for a living that makes money and helps people in the marketing world. So if you want to do that, go to scrappyabm.com and you can fill out a form and schedule a call. Those are all the places to find me.
Thank you so much, Mason.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Revenue Mind. If you enjoyed what you heard, leaving a review would be super helpful in getting this out into the world. If you're looking for support, you can join our Slack community that focuses on mental health for professionals. Just DM me on LinkedIn, I'll send you the invite. See you next time.